Sabaidi, Najong, welcome back, Sabscribers. It's me, Sab, here again with another episode of Suffering of Silence. So, the month of June. Oh, the month of June was dragging me through the fucking mud. I've already discussed in the last episode about how my car broke down and just a whole lot of shit went down in Chicago a couple weeks ago. Now I'm trying to recover from all of this. Really been working my ass off, not only just like with the pod and everything else that I'm trying to do or accomplish. Actually, starting today, refrain from Instagram as much. But it's kind of made this false narrative for me, at least, that I can still feel connected to certain people. We have Chicago Fashion Week coming up in September, and I need to prepare myself at least for that. I have some ideas in mind as far as what piece I want to make for the actual show, to wear to the actual show, because obviously I will not be in the show. But I will be there to support my friends and do my thing as well. Take the pod on the go. But okay, so that's just me catching up. All right, so I do have a few things that I will be doing the next coming weeks. And I really was trying to slow down on Chicago and all that stuff. But opportunities say otherwise for me, which is okay. I'm so grateful for what I have. I'm so grateful for even having the opportunity to stay busy and remain busy, because I really thought I was going to lose my fucking mind when I got back from Chicago, because I was losing my fucking mind in that car. I was losing my fucking mind when I realized that my car was just out for the count. When I had to give up and be like, you're not going anywhere without a tow. And I'm like, damn, something so serious is really happening to my car. And I feel like that will really hinder me from actually going to Chicago as often. But I still need to get so much work done. And I have yet to even do an episode, full blown one on one episode with any of my friends out there. So I'm still planning that out. There's someone in particular who was actually on a Portapod series episode that I am so extremely excited to bring on. That was supposed to happen, but car situation, and I'm doing what I can to make it happen for sure. So in the next couple of weeks, I guess I will still be staying busy. I thought July was going to be like a quieter month for me. I guess not. I'm also going to be preparing myself for Content Day, which is in August in Chicago. I posted about it a few times. But again, I'm trying to take a step back on Instagram because it just gives me this toxic thought process. And I don't know. I just personally know that it's starting to change certain thoughts in my mind, and I don't like that feeling. So, right now, today's episode, I actually was debating on a few different topics to talk about today. Specifically, today, I wanted to talk about some things that I was researching just earlier, something that just came across my attention. And I was having these conversations with some of my peoples recently about how I feel like so many people of my generation we've been living in the cloud from 2017 to 2021. And a lot of us were just in this space where we were just living to live or living to survive, and not necessarily living to thrive or living in the best versions of ourselves. And a lot of us had just forgotten what even happened within those 4 years. It's crazy that I can meet other people that can resonate with me on that, because that for me was just a really depressive time. Not only was I in a really awful relationship, but I was also grieving my dad. And I talk about this often. Those years they were so hard for me to dig into, to heal from, and relive, I guess you could say, in some way. And I took some notes down on some of the things that some of the things that I was looking into and researching. And so I discovered that there's actually a study about generations of smokers in a town. The study was to determine why some people were getting sick, lung cancer, and things along those lines, actual health issues, why they were getting sick, and why there were other families that had chronic generational smokers who were just like perfectly healthy, that lived a long life. And so this study was supposed to determine what is the determining factor in the situation. What was the difference? And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really look too much into it because that wasn't even the point of what drew me in. It wasn't about the study itself. It was literally about why the two families differentiated. So essentially, the study discovered that the family that was dying of cancer and dying of these illnesses, it was due to one huge determining factor was the way that they processed their emotions. And they were essentially getting sick from suppressed negative emotions. And I thought that was, like, insane. That's what intrigued me the most. And just looking it made me look into more of emotional suppression and just what they call dissociative amnesia. And so I was just doing a little bit of my own research, and I hate getting super technical with it because it gets a little boring for people, and I'm not trying to necessarily not give all the facts, but you can do your own research of what dissociative amnesia is, and more specifically, it follows a traumatic incident in your life, right? And so I guess for me too, what keeps me sane is being able to label the things that I've experienced and the emotions that I experience, right? I quite literally, I'll probably insert like a feelings chart or wheel. I forgot what it was called, but I have one posted on my wall above my desk. It literally just is a wheel of emotions. It tells you it helps you dive deeper into that surface level emotion that you're feeling. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling happy, if you're feeling like mad or whatever the hell it is, it lets you dig deeper into what exactly it could be. It could actually be disappointment. It could be a number of things. So it gives you a different way to label your feelings. And sometimes it can, for me, help associate that feeling better with the experience itself. And obviously, that's the point of what the emotion wheel is supposed to help you associate it better to the experience. But more specifically, I feel like it helps me learn that feelings are feelings. You have to process them. There's no way of ignoring them, there's no way of just downplaying how you really feel. That's never really going to help anyone in this situation. And for me personally, as I learn what I'm feeling, I'm also learning, obviously, how it feels within my nervous system. And that's so incredibly important because when you're present with it, because I still think back on certain experiences and my car broke down. And when the whole situation was that I was just extremely uncomfortable in the whole situation. It wasn't just because my car broke down, there were just a lot of nuanced shit that was going on in this situation. And I even thought back and reflected on the fact that my nervous system wasn't like I wasn't even being present with myself when I was feeling all those emotions because I was trying to brush off the fact that I feel stressed. I feel freaked out that my whole weekend just got ruined and all the work that I needed to get done isn't happening. I felt hurt and disappointed because I feel like so much of it was to blame on me. But I forget again Murphy's Law. What will go wrong will go wrong. There is nothing I could have done to control that. I'm sure that most people would think, yes, there are things that I could have done to prevent it, maintain my car better, and etc. But the whole point is shit went wrong because it had to go wrong. I had to receive these tests of my character to ensure instill that inside of me that this is really what I want. Is this really the path I want to continue to go down? Or am I just going to give up at any sign of inconvenience? And I almost failed that test, like I said in the last episode. But I just went off on a whole tangent here. I was actually going to start talking about emotional suppression. So I'm going to try to read off my notes as much as I can, but not necessarily to an extent that will bore people. But obviously, just as it sounds, emotional suppression, you're holding back your feelings. You're not trying to feel out your feelings, whether it's most of the time it's negative emotions. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're upset, you really got to let yourself feel those emotions out. Find a healthy way to express yourself when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're crying. It's okay to go through those emotions, you know what I mean? And I know in the moment it's hard to remind yourself that it is okay. But again, once you learn yourself and you learn how it feels within your nervous system, it will immediately trigger you to kick in those healthy skills and those healthy habits that you've learned and created. So, emotional suppression over long periods of time can also cause memory issues from your brain disconnecting from overwhelming feelings. And I thought that was extremely important to note because for so long, I obviously had to emotionally suppress a lot of the things that I was going through internally, and not just with that relationship, but just everything in general. Things with my family, things with grieving my dad, and just suppressing all of those feelings itself was just putting me into a position where I did it for so many years that I was forgetting shit. And I still continue. I catch myself forgetting things often. Things that should be, I don't know, I guess, quote unquote, easy for other people to remember. And that's not necessarily, I can feel myself dissociate, especially even to use that the last time I was in Chicago. I started to really dissociate when I started to feel annoyed and angry with just how my weekend was going. I could feel myself just shutting down as I reflect and I think about it now. I saw myself literally shutting down halfway through the Chicago Streetwear Expo. My emotions were just like, dude, no, just shut it off because you're angry right now, but you can't be. You gotta put on a brave face in front of everyone, or at least try to. And from there, it just all went downhill. I never clicked myself out of the shutdown mode. And that didn't really help me too much for the rest of the weekend. So, some signs of dissociative amnesia would be walking into rooms and forgetting why you walked in there. You forget parts of your childhood. Reading can sometimes feel impossible, not because of the lack of interest, but the nervous system is stuck in a low level state of survival. So, that resonated a lot with me because I do enjoy reading. I have so many fucking books I still need to finish, and a lot of it is more for like research purposes for the pod. But I chose to, I just can't sit down and read because I know that my brain will dissociate and start thinking of other things. But that may also be a cause of ADHD. For a long time, I wanted to forget parts of my childhood. I forgot so many things about my past that eventually resurfaced, of course, as I like continue on this healing journey. And I think also I suppress a lot of what happened to me in my childhood because I'm reminded of this person that I was back then that I did not like. I didn't like those versions of me. I wasn't proud of those versions of myself. And that's why I suppressed so much of it. And learning to love every part of you, it's been difficult, of course, but it starts to uncover a lot of the things that I have suppressed as a child. So, someone who suffers from dissociative amnesia, they tend to rewatch old videos or reread old texts to remember what they were feeling back then. And I'll tell you, a lot of millennials. See, I hear there's a stigma with millennials. Apparently, we're so obsessed with nostalgia. And that could very well be true, but I also feel like millennials, it's not just us. People just love Y2K. That was our shit. And even the newer generation loves Y2K and they're bringing that back. But anyways, I digress. I feel that this makes a lot of sense, at least for a lot of the millennials that I know, why we are obsessed with nostalgia because we've dissociated so much of that part of our lives, our childhood, our upbringing, but then remembering it now because we're all healing now, we're all working through. Well, I don't want to say all because I can't speak for all of millennials, but I can speak for myself and at least a lot of the people that are around me. We are finally healing, we are finally working through a lot of the shit that we were hiding from ourselves. And I watch a lot of old videos and photos, and that's why I think it's funny when people ask me, like, how do you keep photos or videos or these old voice messages from when your ex was doing shit to you? And I'm like, because I need to remind myself why the fuck I don't go back. That's exactly why I did the podcast in the first place. It was like, remember, bitch, it started because you were sitting in the car, you were screaming and crying because he was gaslighting you. And so sometimes I rewatch those videos of myself crashing the fuck out because I need to remember you came a long fucking way, bitch. And don't forget, because especially when you're in, we could even make this a broader situation. The life that you live, you're essentially being gaslit in so many fucking ways, right? By society and by societal norms. You're being gaslit so fucking much that the shit that you actually are not approving of, the things that you feel like are not necessarily great that happen in the world, you're just dissociating from it because you're like, It's normalized, it's desensitized to you. That's the shit I'm talking about. Is like, sometimes rewatching yourself suffer or hurt, for me at least, I'll say, to rewatch or re-feel those feelings is what I need to help myself from this feeling of dissociation. Golly, that took too long to explain. But again, it's not just my personal experiences with my ex, but it's also like societal fucking shit. The things that society has made me feel I was fucking wrong about being hurt for. Those things were also things that I was dissociating from and I was suppressing as well, those emotions that I felt. So it can be in so many broad ways, but I just want to emphasize on that. And for example, after years of being the strong one, you can't remember how you feel during key moments in your own life. So sometimes I couldn't even remember how I felt the day my dad died. I couldn't even remember how I felt in my dad's funeral. There was so much dissociation from all that shit. Count how many fucking times I say dissociation in this fucking episode. But like, there was just so many times where I just checked out and I was just so shut down. Honestly, I didn't even really cry at my dad's funeral until probably halfway through. And my dad, we had like 3 day ceremony for him. And I couldn't even associate myself to those feelings. And same goes with like my grandma. Damn near the whole time, we had a whole week long wake for my grandma. Like I couldn't even cry. I told myself the day that we were going to unplug my grandma, I went back to the house by myself and I just bawled. I broke down and just bawled my fucking eyes out in her room. And I was like, this is the one time you get to cry. The rest of the time, you got to stay strong. You have to be the one to hold it together because there's no one else. There's literally no one fucking else. And I held that shit down. And I'm not saying it to brag about it. I'm not saying it to throw it in anyone's face. It's just more of like, I held that shit down till the end. And then when I finally associated myself back to those feelings and that loss, it was months down the line. It was almost a whole year down the line. And I just crashed the fuck out. And it was a little bit of everything all at once. And that it all aligns so well. Like me discovering this dissociative amnesia, this has just truly changed my whole perspective on my healing in general because it makes so much more sense as to why I move the way that I do, how I move, and just everything. Because I had always thought about this, and this was always something that I was aware of, but I could never put a label to it, and I could never understand what it was until now. That's also why I can seem so passive aggressive to people because I don't necessarily talk about how I actually feel because I always am thinking, like, hold it together, bitch, keep it together, and crash the fuck out on your own time. Crash the fuck out when you need to. And then I started just crashing out on motherfuckers and I started addressing shit and I started saying shit to people to their faces. And then people didn't like that either. So just learning more and more about myself and how I can change how I approach situations, I guess. But again, maybe even the thought of some of the people I've addressed issues with and they've been offended by, a lot of that was more of their own personal shit too. They had personal shit they were going through, which is why they weren't receptive to any form of healthy communication I was giving. So, one thing that I thought was really interesting was that when emotional expression is consistently shut down due to upbringing, your environment, and survival, the pattern in your brain just starts to deviate on its own. It starts to change on its own. But I obviously genuinely believe that so many of us have grown up thinking that emotions are a threat and feeling emotions, oh, that's definitely a hell no. Because if you're already thinking that you feeling anything is a threat, you're never going to process your feelings. You're never going to know that it's okay to process those feelings. And starting to understand that there are so many ranges of emotions out there. That's what's key to determining the fact that emotions are okay because everyone feels them. Regardless of how stoic someone can be, we all feel them. Like we're all fucking humans. We all have feelings and some of us just feel them hard. Me personally, but in my personal experience growing up, feelings were always suppressed because I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. I wasn't allowed to feel things in a big way without being punished for it. And so rewiring your brain to understand that it is okay to feel these emotions and let alone labeling these emotions when you're feeling them and realizing how it actually physically affects you internally, that has been like I just started learning that in the last couple of years. And I'm about to be 30 this year. And I just can't believe I've lived my entire life without knowing how to label my feelings and understand that they are okay. And I have to give myself grace though, because that is a part of the healing process of dissociative amnesia is giving yourself grace, giving yourself the patience and forgiving yourself for not only feeling the emotions that you feel, but also for dissociating at any point in your life. Severe cases obviously go on for years. Sometimes it's only a few moments, sometimes it's just for some days, weeks, months, but in a lot of severe cases, it is for many years. And so, a lot of what I've already said is realizing that you need to remain present in your current situation, in what you are experiencing, your feelings, and what your body is telling you about how you're feeling. And I think that being present is so much more difficult than people think. It's so much easier said than done. And sometimes it's even more difficult to feel present when you're not in a emotionally safe place or when you're not around a lot of emotionally safe individuals. More importantly, creating that safety for yourself, that is a journey in its own. I think learning to be more secure with yourself is also a part of it as well, because as you become more secure with yourself, you become more secure in your emotional safety as well, because you don't care what people are thinking. You don't care whether or not someone has an issue with you feeling the way that you feel, because that you don't need anyone else's validation about how you feel about something. So just never let it destroy you. Because I had actually had a recent incident where someone was essentially apologizing to me, but not necessarily apologizing to me, but more so saying, "Hey, I told you so, but I'm still sorry." And it was just more of, you could have just saved that apology and I'm good. We could have been good, you know what I mean? And it just made me realize that I didn't need to even say, I didn't even care to explain myself to this person. I didn't even care to even banter back and forth with this person because I could have very well went off and just said everything that was on my mind and just, it could have been a whole bigger situation than it was. But I chose not to. I chose peace, not just because I wanted peace, but because I had to understand that this person was never going to reach that. I had to meet that person where they were. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, but when you become more emotionally stable with yourself and grounded with yourself, you don't need the validation from anyone else. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone else. And you don't care if anyone is offended by how you feel because you know that what you feel is still valid. And also being someone who's pretty empathetic, I would say I can see different perspectives of things and why a person would feel the way that they do. And it's not to justify terrible toxic behaviors or actions, but it is to understand better that that person is just at that emotional level and they don't have the same emotional capacity that you have. So, not that you're just supposed to give grace, but some people aren't deserving of it, which is understandable. But I know that me personally, I operate from a place of, I try to operate in a place of love. So I will give grace even when it's not deserved. Because I truly, genuinely believe that the energy that I put out there will always come back to me tenfold. And it may not be immediate, but I believe it. I believe it in ways that actually it may come back to me in ways that I would never have even imagined. And so I feel like I was just going off on so many tangents here, but just to reel it back into dissociative amnesia here. Just remember it takes fucking time. I'm just starting to work through I just started working through this in the last couple of years. And now 2 years into this journey, I'm just labeling what exactly that was. Dissociative amnesia. And it especially was very prominent between those 4 years, but it applies to even very specific local parts of my life, my childhood. So just acknowledge what you're feeling. Acknowledging it validates it for you. And just know that just even saying it to yourself, like, there was hurt there. that made me feel uncomfortable. Even if it's just to yourself, that's what's important, is like, you're working through these feelings for yourself. Because the whole fucking gist of this was that dissociative amnesia can lead you to die faster, as studies have shown. And that is also something that I've seen even with like, watching my dad go through the things that he went through with chemo and everything. My dad wasn't really great with his emotions and his feelings. None of my family is, obviously. And if we were better emotionally and mentally, which I think we did pretty well, I think, for considering a lot of the shit that we typically would kind of react to, my dad probably wouldn't have held on as long as he did. I think about from the time he got diagnosed to when he actually passed, so many times we were told by doctors and nurses that it's so shocking to still see him survive in his condition because of so many different things. But not only was my mom very tedious and caring in how she took care of him physically, but I feel that as we all tried to emotionally stabilize for that time, it was an important factor into his survival for the years that we did get with him, because his illness could have very well taken him much early on, and considering his condition as well. So those are just some personal experiences that I thought I should share. And so, needless to say, I'm going to keep smoking, I'm going to keep vaping, and I'm going to keep drinking, but I'm going to stay happy doing it. I'm just playing. I'm just kidding. But yes, emotional suppression is actually something that can lead you down an earlier death. So don't do it. Learn how you can break your dissociative amnesia. So this was all over the place, but just remember, acknowledge it, label your feelings, understand how it feels within your body, and let yourself express it in a healthy way. Whether it's crying, whether you're sad, whether you're mad, whatever the emotion is, good or bad. Well, there is no bad emotion. It's just positive or negative emotions, but they're all worth acknowledging and feeling out. So, give yourself permission to feel. So, I'm just going to sign off because I feel like I was just babbling on for too long. And you can catch me on the next episode. I got some more Portapod episodes to put out as well in the meantime. But I will talk to you guys very soon. You can find me. Oh, please don't forget to submit your questions, submit your stories, some shit. Talk to me, y'all. I don't even gotta read these stories and say who it is. I'll keep it anonymous if that's what you want. But let me know if you're interested in having a sit down conversation as well. Figure some shit out. But you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Suffering of Silence Pod. I recommend finding me on TikTok because I'm staying off of Instagram for a little while because it's getting a little toxic for me. But I will talk to you guys very soon. And I want to make sure I thank you guys for being subscribers, as always.